Welcome to the KDI Kadasha Investigators.
Today, we'll be investigating an infamous serial killer tormenting San Francisco in 1969.
This serial?
No, a serial killer. A killer who kills in series. That's a tongue twister.
Wait, so what's the name of the serial killer?
The Zodiac.
I'm a Gemini.
No, his name is Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer is an unidentified American serial killer who has murdered at least 5 people in Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area, between 1968 and 1969.
Oh, right. I heard he operated in rural, urban areas. He left grisly murder and bizarre public letters with horrifying threats, mysterious ciphers teasing his identity. He loved taunting the police and the public with nearly 24 communiques.
He was never identified, though. He was officially connected to 5 murders, 2 attempted murders. The Zodiac also hinted that he's at least killed 37 victims.
In 1974, the letter stopped. He seemed to have vanished. No one has ever been caught for his crimes. And the case remains open. This mystery surrounding the murders has been the subject of numerous books and movies. But what did the Zodiac do?
The first incident was on December 20th, 1968, near Vallejo, California. The Zodiac Killer shot 2 high school students, David Faraday, age 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, age 16.
David was found lying dying inside the car with a gunshot in the head, while Betty Lou had gone out and ran away. She was shot 5 times from behind.
They were shot while parked in Lover's Lane. The assailant would then drive off.
At around 11:10 p.m., a passing motorist called the police. Law enforcement found a spent .22 shell casing lying on the right front floorboard, and 9 expended .22 casing were found on the ground near Faraday's head. They found impressions of shoe prints in front of the car, going towards the passenger side.
Investigations lasted 7 months afterwards, and there was extreme coverage on the media, but nothing was found.
2 months later, the Zodiac Killer would strike again, September 27th, 1969.
Cecilia Shepard, age 22, and Brian Hartnell, age 20, were having a picnic at Lake Berryessa in Napa County. Cecilia heard some noise and looked back to see a man. But Brian didn't see anything and brushed it off as another man having a picnic.
That is very interesting. The man was wearing an executioner's hood that bore the circle cross symbol.
He held him at gunpoint. He told Cecilia to tie Brian up, and the Zodiac tied her up. He stabbed Brian 10 times in the back, one of which went through his lung, then stabbed Cecilia 10 times.
The knife blade was nearly 1 foot long and looked homemade. The killer left a message on Brian's car, including the previous murder dates and his circle cross symbol, showing that this was done by the same killer.
They both untied themselves when help arrived, and they were brought to the hospital, but unfortunately, Cecilia died. Brian managed to survive despite all the stabs.
At 7:40 p.m., the Zodiac made a phone call confessing to law enforcement to report a murder of a couple. He gave the exact location, saying, "I'm the one who did it."
Clues that were found were a size 10.5 Wayne Walker shoe print and tire tracks at the scene.
2 weeks later, on October 11th, 1969, the Zodiac attacked at the heart of San Francisco. He entered the cab of Paul Steen, age 29, as a passenger. While in the taxi, Paul was shot in the head by a 9mm semi-automatic. This gun is really loud.
3 witnesses saw this murder, and the Zodiac wiping down the cab with a cloth, most likely to hide fingerprints. The witnesses described the murderer as white, around age 25 to 30 years old, wearing glasses, reddish-brown hair, and sporting a crew cut. He was not masked.
The police spotted a man matching this description, but the dispatcher had mistakenly told them that the suspect was a black person. This made the police walk past the Zodiac Killer cluelessly.
Once the correct description was given to the cops, they let the suspected black man go, and the Zodiac Killer was not caught.
When the area was secured, officers found bloody fingerprints and Paul was found dead. The police assumed the killing was a robbery gone wrong, as Paul's wallet was gone. A large chunk of Paul's shirt was gone too.
2 days later, the Zodiac Killer took responsibility for Stein's death in a letter postmarked October 13, 1969. It contained a piece of the driver's bloody shirt, and he taunted the police, saying they could have caught him if they had searched the park.
The San Francisco Police Department decided to close this case in 2004. Paul was his last known victim.
I bet you're wondering what he wrote in his letters.
His first letter read, "This is the Zodiac speaking." This is the first time he used the name Zodiac. This was his opening statements in many letters he wrote. "I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having a good time with the code? If not, tell them to check up. When they do crack it, they will have me." He expressed his enjoyment of killing and suggested another attack, which occurred on September 27, 1969. Another one of his letters was published in the San Francisco Examiner. Was a letter postmarked November 9, 1969. He taunted his pursuers, saying, "The police shall never catch me, because I have been too clever for them." He was never found because I wear transparent fingerprint guards. My killing tools have been brought through the mail. Order outfits before the ban went into effect.
Of Zodiac's 4 coded messages, a married couple was able to solve his first cipher. Among other things he expressed, "I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. The best part of it is that when I die, I'll be reborn in paradise, and they have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name, because you will only try to slow me down, or atop my collection of slaves for afterlife."
Oh, that's so scary.
I know. Despite decades of trying to decipher other ciphers, another tongue twister, the one I previously read was the only one ever solved. Zodiac claimed that he shared his identity in other coded messages.
So, what are his criminal patterns?
The Zodiac killer held grudges against couples and killed them with a simple handgun or stabbed them.
He also liked to taunt the police and scare the public. This gave him a sense of power.
Is there any info on other suspected victims?
There are a few possible victims of the Zodiac, like 18-year-old Sherry Josephine Bates, and the disappearance of 25-year-old Donna Lass. The Zodiac killer killed young couples, so this raises concerns, as Sherry Josephine Bates was found alone.
This is really creepy. This guy who's killed over 30 people is just out free, with no justice served to the victims.
Yeah. Well, we have some suspects for the Zodiac. His name is Arthur Lee Allen. This is the primary suspect. He is the most famous and well-known suspect. He is potentially connected to the Sherry Josephine Bates murder. He was seen in the Riverside area where the body was found, and police found a typewriter similar to the one used for the anonymous confession letters.
Wow, that's sketchy. I heard about how Allen's troubling history matched the timeline of the Zodiac's killing. He got fired as a teacher for assaulting a student, and then moved back to his parents' home minutes away from where the Zodiac killed Betty Lou and David. And he also had a watch in 1967, which had the same symbol, circle and a cross.
That's why he was on people's radar. Also, in the late 1960s, Allen allegedly told his friend Don Cheney about his desire to kill couples, taunt police with letters, and use the name Zodiac. Don Cheney later reported this to the police. In 1971, Arthur was interviewed by the police and had numerous search warrants, but nothing was found.
There is some circumstantial evidence that the police have found in his case that make him even more suspicious. He had diagrams of bombs in his house, threatening letters to school children, and size 10.5 shoes, which matched the shoe prints found at Lake Baronessa.
Another suspect, Gary Francis Post. The circumstantial evidence surrounding him include: he is suspected to be Zodiac in 2021 when former cops claimed that DNA obtained from a hiking mat belonging to Post had strong similarities to the DNA found on the Zodiac's crime scene.
You might have heard of our next suspect from TikTok.
Wait, TikTok? Was the Zodiac doing the renegade?
Actually, TikTok didn't exist back then. So basically, a TikToker shared how he thought his grandpa, Richard Hoffman, was the Zodiac. His suspicions were that he resembled the Zodiac killer's sketches. The night of one of the murders, Darlene's, his grandfather was on patrol in an unmarked car, wearing plain clothing. The Zodiac also wrote "until" with one L, and so did Richard Hoffman. Most of the things that the TikToker said had little to no evidence and couldn't be proven.
But detectives found a poem signed R.H., which is confirmed to be Zodiac's writing, same as Richard Hoffman's initials, although anyone could have the initials of R.H.
Well, we'll never know because Richard Hoffman died.
So why couldn't they catch the Zodiac?
A few reasons why could be maybe he was connected to powerful forces like police officers. There was societal racism as they assumed the Zodiac was a black man, and the lack of interpretation of crime scenes, and the lack of forensic investigators, and the technology wasn't as strong as it is today. But what would have happened if the Zodiac was caught?
He would likely be sentenced to death row, which was lawful in California in 1969. If he was caught in 1972 or the years following, then he would have a jail sentence of 25 years to life imprisonment with no parole, since death row was abolished.
But what if he was mentally ill? Then they couldn't prove mens rea. Would he be sentenced to death row or life imprisonment?
Actually, he would likely not go to a mental hospital because of the Short Doyle Act.
This act went into effect in July 1969.
In the 1960s, mental health care was undergoing major changes, decreasing hospital beds and increasing community services, so he would have likely not ended up in a mental hospital.
He would be sentenced to multiple counts of first-degree murder. Even though first and second-degree murder are very similar, you're charged with first degree in the most serious cases involving premeditated murder and intentional murder.
So anyone can be the Zodiac. Anyways, societal impacts.
Right. What are the societal impacts of the Zodiac not being caught? Well, I would have mistrust in the police since they couldn't catch the killer or bring anyone to justice. The fact that the Zodiac killer was playing a game with the police and seemed
2 steps ahead.
creating huge mistrust and chaos between law enforcement and citizens.
People feared for their safety as the Zodiac was taunting the police, letting everyone know that they were in danger. Young couples especially were afraid and feared the Zodiac the most. The media also exemplified the issue, which made people afraid of each other.
Racism was also a major issue, since the police saw a man that matched the description of the Zodiac, but let him go as they suspected it was a black person. The police were supposed to be open to any possibilities and had no concrete evidence that the suspect was black. This act of discrimination further segregates people of color from the trust in law enforcement. I hope I never encounter the Zodiac killer.
Well, KDI case closed. We're retiring. We're wrapped. We're done.
There is